Hey, welcome back. It's a terrific Tuesday in New York, that's for sure. It's UN week, so you know the traffic is unbearable. But we're in the downtown studios today, so we can avoid some of that and bring you the usual, the guests that know where the rubber meets the road. Top thought leaders in business, politics, philanthropy, all that good stuff. Before we get into that, Dow Jones is recovering just a bit, down 13 points. I expect it to go into the green today unless Trump continues to send out some really outrageous tweets. But other than that, I think we're good. Bitcoin down just a little bit. And joining us today in the leadoff spot, it's Athan Slotkin, and he is the CEO of AthanSlotkin.com, right? And he's a entrepreneur coach and a business coach, and you kind of help businesses avoid the 5 or 6 main mistakes every business makes, and then kind of guide them through from there, right?
That's correct. Yeah, there's probably even more than 5 or 6 to
Right.
be honest with you, but yeah, absolutely, that's true.
So we always, every day, we try to be a little entertaining, we try to be a little educational, and then, you know, we get into politics where we bring in a Democrat, Republican, we're independent, so all voices are heard. But what is the key to teach our audience the simple building blocks? What's the one thing that everyone kind of screws up at one point?
Knowing your financials. There are a lot of excellent ideas that exist out there, and a lot of people with passion behind them too, and it's really, entrepreneurship is really in a good position right now. There are a lot of people with good motivation. However, when it comes down to the numbers of their business, what the expenses are going to look like, what their trajectory is going to look like for the business as well, just a very high percentage of CEOs and founders I find just don't know their numbers inside and out.
So I've been working in capital markets for like 25 years now, and I feel like I run into the same thing. You know, I always say, you want a pro forma, let's play fun with numbers, right? You want a pro forma? Let's take 5% of the global growth, cut that in half, put a 10% growth model on it, and we're going to do this much in month 1, and then we're going to do this much in year 2 and year 3, right? What number you want me to get to, and then I can build the pro forma backwards off of it, right? And I think people, in their minds, you're right, they believe they're pro formas, and they don't actually understand what's happening under their feet with the cash flows.
I think that's right, and I think, you know, for businesses, there's the assumptions that fall under there too, right?
Yep.
And that's where it has to have the good logic behind it, even if it's just an idea phase. You need to understand those nuances of your business, because what we do know is that whatever you map out in your pro forma is exactly what's not going to happen as the business actually evolves.
Exactly.
So you have to understand what the levers are in your business and the assumptions and the sensitivities around those, so you can monitor them and make adjustments along the way.
So Frankie's one of the top, if not the best, radio men, TV men, producers, creators of content on earth, but he's not a great businessman, entrepreneur. He works for corporate America, big radio stations and stuff. So I always like our guests to bounce stuff off him, because if you can put it into the regular man terms that a novice can understand, then our whole audience learns something from the show. What did you hear out of that,
Well,
Frank?
so my question first for Athan is, I know everybody calls you the shadow CEO. What does that mean? Why do they call you the shadow CEO? Are you like a superhero or something?
I think it was said in jest originally, to be honest with you. You know, I have clients, you know, who are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, and I take a lot of pride in that. I treat their businesses like they're my own, to be able to figure out how to go to market. And I think out of jest at one point, they just said, you're kind of like a shadow CEO. And I said, okay, if that's what you want, then that's what I'll be. If that's what
So
it
do
is.
you incubate any of these companies? Like, hey, well, now that I'm looking at your numbers, you really don't know what's going on, because if you did this and this thing is going to be worth a lot more.
Yeah.
And then are you like the prophet too? Do you come in with some money sometimes or no?
Once in a while, I've done that a couple of times. But also, I do incubate the ideas as well, right? And I think the nuance is being empathetic to the CEOs and entrepreneurs early on, especially if it's their first business. A lot of people will give them really positive feedback. Oh, it's a great idea, go for it. And it comes out of support, right? Or they'll say, it's a bad idea, but it'll be unfounded. I just try to be really blunt with them and usually have number backing behind it. So I could say, this is why it's not good. This is what we need to monitor. Let's watch this moving forward.
And Athan, what are the biggest mistakes that a startup would make? What are the common ones?
I think in line with the numbers piece, what winds up happening is people undercapitalized or under account for the capital that they're going to need. And so what they'll say is, I'm trying to build my business to this point. I want to get, whatever off the ground. I want to market it a little bit. But they don't account for the fact that there's always volatility that exists in businesses. And so you need to always have buffer in there. It doesn't even matter what it is that comes up. It's just something is always going to come up, and you need buffer in there to be able to protect against it.
So when he's talking about these assumptions that underlie the pro formas, where those are the brush fires before it becomes an inferno, right? So, hey, as part of this pro forma, we assumed our existing customers were going to grow by 20% because we were going to enhance the value and we were going to get more services. And then we're going to acquire 10 new customers a month. And those 10 new customers will equal some amount of dollars. And then 6 months from now, we're going to deploy more capital and we're going to grow by 15 a month.
Yeah.
And then when you have 3 months of only 6 customer acquisitions, you're down 40% on the expected stuff. Is that
Yeah,
right?
and then the uh-oh comes in a little too late at that point is what happens. And so I think...
You're minus. You're at the max on your credit cards because you bought equipment and this stuff and that stuff. And now, why are we losing? Well, we don't have any money. Why? Well, because we're not acquiring customers like we thought.
There's a little bit of this, like, come to Jesus, look yourself in the mirror test that is to happen, which is, does this pro forma actually stand up? Is it actually believable that this can happen? Not for outsiders, not for you selling your business to somebody else. Can you look yourself in the mirror and say, I am beyond confident that this will happen, even in the worst scenario? Okay, now we can go ahead.
What are the chances of success if you're a startup company? Let's say they're not wise enough to pick a sage like you to shepherd them through the process. What are the chances of a startup succeeding?
Yeah, it's tricky. They have very, very high failure rates. So usually it's about half within the first few years. Then it increases up to 75, 80% within a couple of years after that as well. So it's very hard to succeed in a business. And part of the challenge is not just financial and projecting out correctly. It's also you have to have the stamina to be able to continue down the pathway. You need to have any personal issues blocked off so nothing sideswipes you in any way. There needs to be a macroeconomic situation that supports your business and allows it to develop. If you count it, there's just so many things that could take your business off of its axis. That it leaves only a small percentage after so many years.
And what makes you an expert? Like, why should we go to you? You sound like you know what you're talking about, but what's your track record? How did you get to be an expert in startups?
That's the goal. Is I'm trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about.
John and I do that for 2 hours a day.
Exactly.
I've seen a lot of businesses over time. I mean, I was an entrepreneur starting at 7 years old, and I've tried and tested.
What did you do at 7 years old? I always hear these stories about how I started being an entrepreneur when I was 5.
In the finger paint business. This guy invented the finger paint business.
I wish I'd invented the finger paints. So I had a tutoring business, and what wound up happening was it wasn't just me. I hired some of my peers into the tutoring business when I was young. So instead of going to work at a fast food restaurant or something else, all of which were good options too, I decided to tutor and teach and built a business around that as well.
At 7?
At 7 years old is when it started.
Who are you tutoring at 7?
Yeah, who do you tutor?
Yeah,
Were you teaching kids how to tie their shoes?
Yeah, exactly. No, not quite. But there are kindergartners who are learning math, of course, at that point.
Got it.
And especially now, 2019, or I guess it was a little bit back
Athan,
then.
where can folks go to learn more about you?
Yeah, AthanSlotkin.com. I also created an Instagram recently for my clients, which is at AthanSlotkin.
Well, you go check out the Shadow CEO, and if you need a Shadow CEO to give you some blunt, real talk, go to AthanSlotkin.com. Thanks for joining us for a liquid lunch today. Thank you for joining us. Now, you stay there right now, partner, because we're coming back right after this.